All right, so let's review the coding challenge. Question number 1. That was a Christmas gift, right? Very easy. It's the most fundamental question in React you can get. Create a welcome component, so whenever we invoke it, it should display welcome to React. Yeah? Nothing particularly complicated here. So welcome to React. That's it, right? Exclamation mark, correct. Anything else? From an elegance point of view? No. The what? Semicolon. Fantastic, Darius. Yeah? Remember, guys, to drop the semicolons if you don't want to get a penalty. And it works. So what you did here, I'm not expecting any magic, to be honest. Easy, easy. Semicolons missing for Darius and Wesley. Daniel, that's interesting. That's interesting. I find it a bit complicated if you think about it, right? Because you're adding a class name that wasn't necessary at all. You're adding a new paragraph, yeah? So you can literally, like Elana did, yeah, keep it simple. But remember the semicolon, guys. No one actually dropped a semicolon. Interesting. All right. Any questions here, guys? No, probably not, right? That was pretty fundamental. Question number 2. What we got here? All right. So in this particular component, we want to verify whether a given user is allowed to buy tickets for a show, right? For a club or whatever. So the condition is essentially if the user is at least 18 years old, then enjoy the show, so he or she is granted to attend the event. If he or she is below 18 years old, then we need to display a message. So this structure here is what we call a ternary operator, right? Look at the way we read it. Condition. If that condition is truthy, is valid, then return something. If it's not valid, then return something else. Yeah? So what happens if the user is about 18 years old? Enjoy the show. And what happens if the user is below 18 years old? Sorry, try again once you turn 18. All right? That's it. Yeah. Again, this is very important. The ternary operator. If you've never seen that, please refer to the JavaScript beginner training, because there is a module in particular about that principle of ternary operator. Any questions? Anything else here? Will it work? Yes, no, why? Let's see if it works, and I'll show you a trick. All right, so Halloween trick. So you'll see that many times, right? That's very typical in the React world. You receive props, and then you do props dot whatever. Props dot user, props dot money, props dot Brexit, props dot whatever. So I never do that in reality, because that's a bit exhausting to me, personally speaking. So in modern JavaScript, this is a new feature of the language, you can do something pretty sexy called object destructuring. So to destructure is like inspecting. Yeah, I want to, you know, when you have a zip file and you want to inspect the content of the zip file, you can think of it like a zip file. Yeah. So how do you inspect the content of the object? Look, curly braces, and then we can simply refer to the property of the object we want to access. User. Why? Because now the code is simpler. I don't have to type props dot 47 times. Yeah. So that plays in favor of readability of our component. Okay? I'll do that all the time, and then eventually you'll get used to it, because I think it's a very interesting pattern. Does it work? It works. So let me check your code. Yep, so once again, I mean, that was pretty straightforward, right? So I believe everyone did the same thing. Fantastic. All right, question number 3. I can see some people struggling here already. Let's have a look. What we got on question number 3. All right, we need to display a text area. You know, the text area is that multi-line input, very classic in HTML, where you can introduce whatever information, right, across multiple lines. So we're expected to create wrapper.find text area. That means we should have a text area inside of the component, and the text area should have 2 properties. The value, which is provided by the component, so we're passing props. The value is the text that is by default in the text area. And finally, the placeholder. Can anyone tell me what the placeholder is? Correct. The placeholder is the typical grayed out text that shows on an input when there is no text, to give you a hint about what to do. Things like, please enter your email, right? As soon as you start typing, the placeholder is gone. All right, so we need to add a text area with a couple of properties. Value, what's the value? Props.value, fantastic. Placeholder is what? Props.placeholder, fantastic, that's it. Yeah, text area with value and placeholder. Let's see if it works. It does work. So let's do a couple of changes. Do we actually need a parent div? Do we need to put it there? Probably not really, right? So I'm going just to delete it. I mean, you know, if you're working for a multi-billion app, they are likely to have thousands of divs on the screen. That goes against performance. Yeah, because the browser takes a while to proceed all this complex architecture of nested divs. So the simpler, the better. If a div is not necessary, get rid of it. So let's see if it works now. It still works, of course, right? So even simpler. And now, I don't want to use the word props at all. You see, 1, 2, 3 times. Using destructuring, how can we do it? Brackets, and then what? Value, comma, correct. So that means, give me the value of the props and save it into a value variable. Give me the value of the placeholder props and save it into the placeholder variable. Yeah? So now, look. You know, by the way, with Visual Studio Code, if you're a Mac user, you can do Command D to select multiple instances. If you're a Windows user, I think it's Control D. And now, pop. Yeah, you delete it in one go. Value, value, placeholder, placeholder. Yeah, very simple. Yep.
When you put the curly braces, sometimes you add a space, for example.
Here.
There, but you don't add it.
It's a style thing, correct. So when talking about the spaces, it's always about styling. Yeah, so we can do that, for instance. That's valid. Yeah. In that respect, if you're unsure about whether you should add the spaces or not, I think we talked about that last week, right? Airbnb JavaScript style guide. And then, you know, you can find what's the appropriate destructuring, right? This is what we are doing here. So, look, you see? So, according to, yeah, you see, we have spaces here. So, we are following the standard. But this is about JavaScript, yeah? Because, don't forget, guys, that in this line, this is just JavaScript. That has nothing to do with React. It's just a JavaScript function. However, that coding style is not about JavaScript, it's about React. So, in React, let's have a look. Do we need to have spaces? React.js. Oh, okay, let me find the style guide. Airbnb React style guide. Right, so attributes. try to find a good example. Here you go. Do not pad JSX curly braces with the spaces. Yeah? And you can see bad with the spaces, good without the spaces. Again, it doesn't really matter, it will work, but this is about following the same coding style. Yeah? Following the same coding style is the same as speaking the same language. It just helps to understand each other, right? All right, so, yeah, any other questions here? No? Okay, so why it didn't work for Darius? Because he forgot the key. Every attribute has a key and a value. Yeah? Props.value, fantastic. But where is the key? So here we should put value equals props.value. And here we should put value equals props.placeholder. Anything else? Anything else we can improve on Darius' approach?
Probably two tabs.
Two tabs, agree on that? Yeah?
Text area
Correct, text area instead of input. Yeah? Correct. Wesley. Interesting. Yeah, that's correct. It works, right? From an indentation point of view, I'm not a big fan of this way of indenting the attributes because look, we have an attribute here on the right and then a new attribute on the left. They feel a bit disconnected. If you need to do that, you can do this. One attribute per line. Yeah? So now it's much easier to inspect all the attributes of your DOM element. Yeah? Cool. What else? For Dan, yeah, perfect. For Elana, yes, pretty much the same problem as Darius, right? So text area, that's the name of the tag, but then we need to put value equals props.value and placeholder equals props.placeholder. So all good for Supriya and all good for Alberto. By the way, whenever you got that tag that has nothing inside of it, so look, Alberto is opening a text area and then he's closing it. You see? Open and close, that's fine. However, look at how sexy this is. In React, you can do the, actually that's also valid in HTML. So you can do that. That's fine. But the idea of that is putting something inside, right? If there is nothing inside, because the text area has nothing inside, then much simpler. Cool. Anything else? No? All right. So question number 4, score details. We have a component called score details that receives one props, scores. What type of data scores is, guys? It's an array of 2 numbers. Yeah? So the component essentially wants to inspect that array of data by displaying how many elements the array has, which is the total, and then the value of the first element, 54, and the value of the second element, 65. How should we deal with that? Be careful here. What that dot means? One second, guys. Class names, yeah? So that means that we should create tags or elements with class total, class first, and class second, so we can refer to it on the test. All right, so on the right-hand side. So first of all, div class name total. As you can see, I'm just preparing the test, yeah? Total, then what? Then first and then second, yeah? I'm just creating the skeleton of my exercise, and then I will go on to the chicken, to the meat, to the details. All right, so total. Total, how do you get the size of an array? Length. Length of what, Supriya? Props of the length, like that? Props of scores. Correct, yeah? So props of the scores refers to the array of scores. In JavaScript, you can do dot length to get the size. So this array has 2 elements, right? 54 and 65. So scores.length will return 2. Cool. And now, in here, first, how do we access, guys, the first element of an array? and then
In the square bracket 0.
something like that.
It's probably some brackets.
The brackets. What happens if I evaluate that as it is? It will display that as hard-coded text, right? It will display first column, props.scores, square bracket 0, which is a bit weird, right? You know, when you receive an email saying, hello, dollar member, like, what the hell? Who is dollar member, right? It's because they didn't interpolate the variable with my name, right? That happens from time to time. All right, so, and now, anyone apart from Supriya, how do we display the second element? Square brackets, 1, like that. Curly braces, correct. Remember, guys, every time you want to refer to JavaScript variable, you need to surround it with curly braces. Yeah, that's the way React works. What do you think? That will make it, right? And what happens if I don't want to type the word props at all? Curly brace. Scores, correct. And then I can safely get rid of it for the reference to props, right? Much sexier. All right, so let's see if it works. It does work. Any warnings? Not at all. Question for you. That's a bit more advanced. So as you may have noticed, every time you create a React component, and you'll start creating lots of React components on task number 7, you need a single root element. In this particular case, I have a div that contains everything. In other words, if I delete it, it won't work. Look, even before testing it, you see the red line, it's like, that's not valid in React. If I evaluate it, it will miserably fail. Here you go. And look at the error. GSX elements must be wrapped into an enclosing tag. Yeah? That's the way React works. How do we solve it? We have 2 options. First of all, easy, add a div, and that's it. There is an alternative, and this is pretty nice, which is adding an empty tag. Look. Be careful, this is not valid in HTML. So if you don't work with React, that won't work. But in React, this is valid. Technically speaking, does anyone know how we call that? A fragment, that's correct, Darius. That's a fragment.
Actually, there's a fragment element in there.
Correct. So historically speaking, you could do that. Explicitly, fragment. But now, you can make it even simpler. So can anyone tell me the difference between having a fragment or having a div? Why performance then? That's correct. You're absolutely right, Dan. If you drop a div, which is fine, you'll have a div in your HTML, right? If you have 1 million components, you have 1 million divs. So what's the point? That div is adding no value to our component, right? It's just, we drop it there because React needs a root element, all right? So let's get rid of it, empty tag, we drop a fragment. In that particular case, we are not adding any artificial div to our screen. So you're right, Dan, it's about performance, yeah? Again, if your application has 10 components, the performance is not going to change at all. But thinking in the long term, thinking about the scalability of our software, it's important to look after these details. Will it work? Yes, it does work. Fantastic. Any questions? No? Elena?
So it will create empty div?
No, it will create nothing. No divs. No. So that it will create nothing. It will just add 3 divs. If we have a div, it will add 4 divs. So we save 1 div. Any questions?
You can't style it, right? You need it to do some style.
That's a good question. No. You cannot style that because there is nothing. That doesn't exist. This is the same as that. Nothing. Empty. Yeah?
But in React, in index.js, like when we create React,
Yeah.
we have a line where it is actually embedding the div which we create here. So if we remove here, still it will display? Or like
Well, I don't know what you're telling me at the moment. Yeah, you can zoom afterwards. Yeah, cool. All right, guys, let me have a look to your code. Yeah, so good for Darius, so good for, look, that's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting, not because I believe it's better or worse, but because it's different, right? And I think it's particularly important to look at different coding styles. So look, let's compare Darius and Wesley. So Darius is inlining all the logic. Unfortunately, we cannot see anything. But this is exactly what we did before. Props.scores.length, props.scores0, props.scores1. However, what Wesley did instead is to create some variables, you see, 3 variables, and then the markup is a bit simpler because he doesn't need to perform any complex operation here. Which one do you prefer? To be honest, this is a bit personal. Yeah, that's a bit personal. I'm not very opinionated. But again, it's nice to see different coding styles. Definitely, if we had to perform any complex operation, like A plus C divided by 4, whatever, yeah, I'm tempted to prefer that approach because it's a way to encapsulate. So we can create a variable, and we can do all the dirty stuff inside of the variable, and our markup will remain as tidy as possible. Okay? Again, that's up to you. That said, can anyone see any elegance issue on Wesley's solution? Correct. Missing semicolon here. Yeah? Guys, remember that when you have a warning, an elegance warning, the elegance console will spot it. Yeah? So let's try to look after these details. For Daniel, I like that as well because it's different. Yeah? So Daniel, instead of rushing, instead of dropping everything in the same line, he moves stuff to a new line. And the indentation is perfect. So I really like it. I think this is very, very readable. Very readable. Yeah? Cool. Nice one, Daniel. I'll give you 1 point. It didn't work for Ilana. Div, score details. Yeah, because we are missing a bunch of things, Ilana. So we're essentially, we're missing some elements with a class name. Even though the logic is right? So first score, last score, but we're expected to wrap these lines into a div or a parent P tag. P stands for paragraph. Does it make sense, Alana? All right, and for Alberto, same as Dan. And I think that's pretty much it. All right. So, question number 5. Yeah, now I solve it. All right. So look, how much time we have left? All right, 8 minutes. Should be enough. So, first of all, let's try to understand the problem. Club tickets. Again, similar to question number 2, I think, right? You try to go somewhere, and depending on some circumstances, you'll be allowed to join it or not. Yeah? So if you're above 18, you can join the club. If you are below 18, but you are trying to join an afternoon session, which is alcohol-free, you're still allowed to join the club, right? Otherwise, you are not allowed. Yeah? It's a pretty common scenario in real life. All right. This is actually simpler than it looks like. Look, I'm going to solve it in different ways. If, else, yeah, if else, yeah, if you've never done any if else statement, please refer to JavaScript beginner once again. So if props dot, wrong. Why props dot h? I think that's why you fail here. Correct. Look, the property name is, the property we are passing is user. So it's props.user, and then we can check, yeah? props.user.age is at least 18. How do we say it? Or it's the afternoon session? 2 pipes, fantastic. Or props.user.session how do we compare JavaScript, guys? How do you say if it's equal to afternoon? Say it again? Equal like that? Free? Sure, free. Or 70. How many? Free, right? Yes. I think we talked about that last week. Never use double equals. Always use triple equals. Even if you don't really understand why. Afternoon. Something like that. All right. If that's the case, return what? Return purchase. Else, something wrong, right? Sorry, not allowed. All right. Right. That condition doesn't make any sense, right? Else. If, else. That's it. So let's see if it works, and then we'll see how to improve it. Cool, it works, right? So it was as simple as that. Once again, I don't want to use the word props anymore. What we will put here? User, fantastic. And now we can simplify our code a bit. Yeah? Every time you change something, please test it. And now, I'm going to transform that if-else into a ternary operator, which is what we've seen before. So with a ternary operator, I'm rewriting these lines into something arguably easier to read, arguably. So if the condition is the same, so let me copy that. If that condition is satisfied, then, you see, with the question mark, we said then what? Purchase. Else, colon, sorry, not allowed. Yeah? Again, I understand that it takes a while to get used to the syntax, but once you get used to it, it's very convenient. Condition, then, if the condition is satisfied, return this. Else, colon, return that. Yeah? So these two instructions are equivalent. I completely respect if you prefer the one at the bottom. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. The most important thing about coding is not about creating the most optimal or trying to say one or two lines. Yeah, the most important thing about coding is first of all make sure it's readable, and then make sure you feel comfortable. Yeah, so don't try to push too much if you don't really understand that. That's fine. Stick to that. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. All right. So will it work? Yeah, it works, right? I mean, as far as I know, in reality here, we are returning a string. You see the quotes? But I believe you could do that as well, right? You could return a piece of HTML. It's pretty much the same thing. Let's see if that's true or not. Yeah, still okay. So again, whichever approach you prefer. Any questions?
I have one for this one. Now mine is about the testing. Will you use a function? I can do it. If it's not
The testing?
in the test, it's
Yeah.
now this shallow.
Shallow, yeah. So this is based on, this is a proper testing engine, yeah? So if you're working on a real React application, they are likely to test the code, yeah? So testing is a mechanism to prove that you didn't break the multi-billion app by accident, yeah? So this is sort of the standard. So this is based on something called Enzyme, which is created by Airbnb, by the way. So with Enzyme, you can simulate user interaction with the component. So you can simulate rendering, you can simulate clicking, hovering, navigating, all these things, yeah? Yeah, Enzyme. Yeah, there are different ways of rendering components. You got shallow, you got mount, there are different ways, but shallow is like the simplest one. So anyway, long story short, here we're essentially rendering the component in a virtual web browser. Anything else? No? So, right, so, look, so for Darius, the approach was right? So he had if, So first of all, it should be greater or equal than 18. Then we should consider the afternoon session as well. For Wesley, that's interesting. That's interesting. You see the problem here, right?
Yeah.
We don't have age. We don't have session.
User.
User, yeah. I know that's a bit confusing, right? Because you see, okay, you focus age, but we should be careful. That's the name of the property, the thing on the left of the equal symbol.
Or I should have an and.
Yes, and also, I think you made that up, right? Night? I mean, why night? That's. No, you're right. Sorry. You're right. It's there, right? Okay, yeah. But anyway, that was the main issue, right? Props.user. And then what else? So we also got Supriya. Once again, the idea was nice. Few problems here. First of all, she's ignoring the evening.
I'm actually just doing and it ended, so I didn't get time to.
Yeah, okay. Understand. So it should be props.user.age is greater or equal than 18, or props.user.session equal afternoon, then purchase. Otherwise, not allowed. Yeah. Well, so for Alberto, yes, the same thing. Yeah, that was expected to happen. But that proves that that's a good exercise because that's a common scenario, right? So we should be careful. We should really pay a lot of attention to these details. All right, guys. Anything else? Yeah.
When you add leave to each,
Yes.
you'd only do that if you wanted to style those, wouldn't you? Otherwise, it will affect the performance.
Yeah, correct. I mean, in that particular case, to be honest, there is no point of wrapping the code into div because, yes, you're right. We're adding more divs. And again, we know this is unnecessary. So what's the point of adding divs? Well, I mean that you want to do something a bit more complicated, like adding a text symbols. So because you may want to return something more complex rather than just a message. Or you want to return an image with a ticket, So in some cases, you need to build a div because you want to build something more complicated. However, if the only thing we want to care about is about the piece of text, then I agree with you, Dan. Let's just return a simply piece of text, and that's it. Happy days. Anything else? No? Cool. So that was it from my side, guys.